I am a licensed clinical therapist and I'm answering some of your questions today. So, the first question I get is why do I keep attracting emotionally unavailable partners? Maybe, usually, that can be because you yourself are emotionally unavailable. Because if you were emotionally available to yourself, we don't know automatically as soon as we meet somebody if they're emotionally available or not, right? But we get signs from people and we get to know them little by little. And when you first get that first signal from the other person that maybe they're not emotionally available, or maybe you notice some red flags, or maybe they do something that makes you upset or uncomfortable or unhappy, we need to be emotionally connected to ourselves and to our body because our thoughts live in our brain, but our feelings live in our body. So we need to be enough connected and emotionally available to ourselves in order to know what we feel about this and then respond to that. So if we're emotionally attuned with ourselves, then whenever that person gives us some sort of sign that maybe this is not the best situation for us, we need to listen to that and respond to that correctly, whether that's communicating that to the other person and letting them know how something made you feel or what you don't like or what you do like, or just kind of like assigning that person a position in your life based on how they act. But a lot of us don't have that connection to ourselves, so we tend to ignore these things, and then it just keeps going and going, and people will do as much or not do as much as they can get away with. The next question is, why do I know what to do but can't seem to do it? And this is actually very common with a lot of our clients at Evolve because they're very intelligent people. They understand everything with logic, but sometimes logic alone or insight alone can't actually help us change or create change in our lives because these things are literally stored in our nervous system. These patterns that you're noticing of things that you want to change in your life happen because we needed them at one point to protect ourselves. Those patterns developed for a reason. They're not necessarily a problem. They helped you survive at some point in your life. But unless you start working with the nervous system or the body, you can understand everything with your mind. But that's not going to be enough motivation to actually do anything about it unless you work with regulating the nervous system, unless you work with creating safety in your body, of releasing these patterns through body-based movements, therapies, exercises. So we also need to have safety in our nervous system to experience positive things, because a lot of people, when they start noticing good things happening in their lives, or they really, really want something in their lives, or also I see a lot of people who feel like they're doing everything right, but they're not seeing the outcome that they want. That's again also based in the nervous system, because we need to recalibrate the nervous system to feel safe experiencing positive things as well. Another question is why do I react so strongly to criticism? And that's probably because you got a lot of criticism in your life in the past and it was unsafe to do so, especially if it came from like parents or caregivers at a very young age. We need the approval of our parents, because think about it. As a child, you are fully dependent on your parents to take care of you. You need them to feed you, to clothe you, to provide shelter for you, to take you places, right? So if those parents that are responsible for taking care of you are telling you that you're doing things wrong or bad, or you're making them feel in a way where they would stop giving you even attention, right? Because we all need attention, we're humans. That can get us into this place where we're always checking for other people and how they're responding to us. Again, even if that's not the reality as an adult, we can survive on our own. It can be just a learned pattern that we developed in childhood. So if you get criticism now, your nervous system perceived that as danger in the past, so it's going to continue perceiving that as danger until we work that through and until we can learn to re-regulate the nervous system and release those patterns and those things from the body. Let me look through some other ones. Why do I feel exhausted all the time? That's a big one that I noticed with a lot of people, especially with a lot of women. And it's because even if we get enough sleep, there's a difference between resting and actually doing things that release the negative emotions that we feel and things that energize us. And it's also different from sleep. So if you're feeling exhausted all the time, it's probably because a lot of those thoughts, feelings, patterns, even tension in the body has been present for so long. That's a lot for the body. That's like a lot of a state for the body to be in at all times. Of course, your body is going to be exhausted, and the state of our body actually affects our thoughts, our feelings, our behaviors, our mood, a lot of those things. So until we let go of the things that we've been like storing in our body, because people will like, we will feel things and either distract ourselves from it, or kind of suppress it, or if we've been suppressing it for too long, then eventually we go numb and we feel nothing, which is like also an exhausting place to be. So we not only need things that like physical rest, we also need to let go of the things that we've been holding on. And a lot of therapy focuses on coping with things or changing how we feel in a way that's still distracting ourselves. We're still distracting ourselves. But of course it can be difficult to feel our feelings if we're always in this like tense body. Then our body is like tense and tight, and the feeling feels this big, and then again it's feelings that we've had for years that we've never paid attention to or looked at or felt or used or whatever. That's gonna be of course that's gonna be exhausting for anybody. Why do I notice myself in the same types of relationships and the same relationship patterns? Okay, that's also just a conditioned response, right? So when we're young, or we had difficult relationships in the past, or we didn't feel fully safe to be ourselves or express ourselves or whatever, we learned that this is what relationships look like, and we learned to respond to those relationships in the same way. All of this is conditioning, and it's not bad conditioning, because especially when we're younger, there's certain ways that we have to react in order to protect ourselves, right? If our parents were really hard on us and told us, that we need to be a certain way, or that we're always doing things wrong, our nervous system is going to hold on to that, and we're going to always believe that, okay, well, I'm wrong, right? And even if somebody's mistreating me or hurting me or doing something that I don't like, I'm wrong, I don't matter. Also, a lot of times, like, stress and trauma can cause us to focus more on the outside. And a lot of healing is noticing what's going on within our body and not ignoring those signs. So if you're noticing yourselves like stuck in the same relationship patterns, no matter which person it is, whether it's friendships or romantic relationships, that's just how you learned to respond, because your system learned that these things are a danger and that it's unsafe to speak up, or that it doesn't matter what you say, or it doesn't matter how you feel. Or maybe you just don't know how to set boundaries, because it can also be very dangerous to set boundaries. It can feel very dangerous to set boundaries, because again, we have that social perception and that other person and how are they going to react, and a lot of us don't know how to set boundaries. Boundaries are not, don't do this to me, stop, I don't like this. A boundary is like more of an action. Sometimes you don't even need to state your boundary. I mean, if you want to, sure, that's cool, that's great. But sometimes you don't need to, especially like people who won't even hear it or care what the fuck you're saying. Boundaries are an if-then statement and then enforcing it. So if you yell at me, I'm going to discontinue the conversation, and then you actually have to discontinue the conversation every time the person yells at you. That's also conditioning, right? That's also a way that we can condition other people and show them how we deserve to be treated, how we like to be treated. Why does therapy help me understand my problems but not actually change them? I understand what is my problem, but what do I do now? So a lot of therapy focuses on coping skills, right? If you're anxious, do some box breathing. If you have this problem, think differently about it. If you're upset, think positively about it. Change your thoughts. So these are all coping skills. These are all ways to change just how you feel in the moment, but we don't want to change how we're feeling, because why would we do that? Our feelings are such useful, such important information. Why would we want to change that? Why would we not want to get the information that our body is giving us because we feel something, because something is important to us? So a lot of times, like, insight alone isn't enough. There's always a question of like, okay, I understand I'm like this because of my past, or I understand I'm like this because of my childhood or whatever, but it's like, now what do we do with it? So what we do is, instead of helping you just cope with the anxiety or the fear or the guilt, shame, whatever, we change how your body responds to those stressful situations. And usually that's kind of always going to be the next step. But a lot of therapy is focused on just talking about it and not working with the body. That's why I prefer somatic therapy before any type of cognitive intervention, because if we do that, once we have more regulation in our body and feel safer in our body and feel more grounded, we actually have access to more parts of our cognitive brain that we didn't have before. Because right now our nervous system is just focused on scanning for danger and surviving. And when you're surviving, we don't need much thinking in that. We just need a tense body, rapid breathing, focus attention on the problem, scanning for danger all the time in order to run, fight, hide. Once we get rid of that, or get out of that survival response, our brain starts to open up. Our brain starts to have the capacity to start thinking about different things. Okay, I'm going to do one more because I like this one. Why do I feel so lonely even when I'm around other people? I think that's a very good question, because I think a lot of us feel this way, and we've all heard the thing of like, oh, you could feel lonely, you could feel alone in a room full of people. And that's because you're disconnected. You're disconnected from yourself first, because in order to truly connect with somebody else, we need to know how to connect with ourselves. We need to know how to listen to the signs in our body, and then we can actually listen to somebody else. And also, I think a lot of us are trying to mitigate relationships and observing life instead of living inside of life. We're always thinking about what is the correct answer, what is the correct way to behave, what is like the social norm that I have to follow here, how am I supposed to respond right now to this person or to this situation. And of course that's always like, you're always on alert, you're always checking and like making sure that you're doing the right thing, and like internally criticizing yourself. So how really from that guarded state how close can you really get to somebody in that guarded state? So I think it's about connecting to yourself first, and then you start feeling less lonely even when you're alone. And then when you go out and you meet with other people, you feel comfortable being yourself. You feel comfortable expressing yourself honestly, communicating, setting boundaries, responding how you want to respond, and not really worrying or caring if somebody misunderstands that. But usually most people respond to it positively, because they feel like they can know you, and they feel that connection within yourself, and they feel that they connect with you better too. But if you like this, I'm going to make more videos like this. If you want to learn more about Evolve therapy and counseling, or the sovereign body method that we use at our practice, you could always check out our website. And I will see you next time.